I know what you all want. You want the raid boss Far Savior that just demolishes everything while you pick apart your opponent with your other units. The reality works a little differently. I'm gonna rank the top Far Saviors and measure them against Duochrome, Harmonic Sonya, and Yuri. Who will be in S tier this time around? Does Brave Hector still make the cut? And who should you invest in? Let's talk about it. So, what makes a B tier armor? For this metric, you get 1 point for surviving and 2 for winning. B tier armors need to win 1 match or tie for 2. Let's start with a unit that's strong and tough. Now, Arden is a personal favorite of mine, in case you didn't know. I mean, he's a Gen 1 unit who is still performing. This speaks most to the level of skills IS has gifted to melee armors. Hardy Fighter, Savvy Fighter, Savior skills, and even Dragon Wall. Just look at these matchups though. Bask in the glory that is Arden surviving Duochrome and Yuri. Sonya is a tough one for most of these units, but these results are enough to get Arden into B tier. It's worth mentioning something that isn't rated here. A dual phase Brave weapon is excellent, and it includes Guard. That comes in clutch when you're not trying to tank things, and sometimes when you are. The fact that Arden is in the same tier as Fallen Edelgard just warms my heart. But seriously, this is still a very good unit. She has a ton of damage reduction. Slaying lets her run a Quick and Pull Sacred Cow build that is kind of ridiculous. With Fallen Shield, she survives Duochrome and Yuri. Sonya just demolishes her though. It's worth mentioning her built-in Gale Force here. Gale Force. Why would you do that, IS? But it means that she has a vicious player phase. Pirate Surtr was a surprise, but look at the results. He's probably a legendary or mythic buff away from bumping up a tier. The fact is, damage reduction in his weapon and an in-combat debuff make him an amazing Far Savior. Without Wind Sweep and with a lot of help, he can survive Sonya, but it's not a matchup that I'd recommend. Ultimately, if you have him, you're happy, but I'm a little surprised that Duochrome pulled off the win. There are 2 things about Pirate Surtr. One is, this unit will get a refine, and it will be good. Look at the history of 5-star armor refines, seriously. The second is, he has a preference C skill that has Omni Menace. It doesn't help him as a Far Savior, obviously, but it can be fun for other things. We've seen a ton of Halloween Myrrh lately because frankly, she got an amazing refine. In particular, the fact that her weapon reduces damage on the second hit plays so well into Hardy Fighter's turn 1 reduction. If you get Chrom without Deadeye, you can survive, and obviously if you avoid Sonya's AoE, you're good. But good God, Sonya just kills everything. Option B is to run Dragon Wall, but you trade 1 win for another. Her auto follow-up doesn't really come into play with these matchups, but it can push you over the edge in both the player and enemy phase in other circumstances. We have moved into A tier. These units survive 1 matchup and win 1 more. But I want to pause here and ask you, what is your go-to armor? Let me know in the comments. Nagi has a lot going for her, and a refine coming down the pipeline can't be dismissed. Colorless advantage and an AoE reduction are just excellent in the current meta. This is the first unit that actually survives Sonya, by the way. Duochrome is an obvious problem, but that's not a surprise. I think this is an excellent investment for now and down the road, but we'll have to see what kind of counters IS prints for Fallen Rhea. We've gotten into the big names now. Ascendant Idunn is IS's attempt to update Brave Hector, and they did a pretty decent job. Her Wary Effect and Not an Armor status have already proved to be a winning combo, but Gen 6 training stats certainly don't hurt. She's a little more speed or an in-combat attack buff away from pulling off the victory against Chrom. Still, this unit is going to be good for a long time. Something worth noting that doesn't show up in The Sims is her armor effective damage. I've had it win me several Summoner Duels and Aether Raids matchups. Next we have Ascendant Fjorm, and she's gotten a bad rap lately. I'm not sure why. She is made for this. Ice Mirror is so incredibly powerful that it almost beats Duochrome even through Triangle Disadvantage and his monstrous defense stat. Her speed gives her a much better player phase than people give her credit for, but we're not talking about that. This is the unit that brought Hardy Fighter into the meta, and that will always be her biggest contribution for better or worse. This is an excellent unit that deserves this spot. You can't ignore Null Sea Disrupt. It's huge in Aether Raids and turns impossible situations to her advantage at times. Now for these metrics, everyone in A tier is equal, but I saved Brave Hector last in this one. The fact is, this is the armor that every other armor is measured by. 2020 is when he got his Refine, and he's still a premier unit. That's nuts. If you invested in this unit 2 years ago, congrats. I was not as smart as you. Anyway, his results look very similar to Idunn, but he's just so much cheaper. The meta seems to be correcting itself, and he didn't make it into S tier, but it was a close thing. Here's the deal. Should you still invest in Brave Hector now? Well, we'll talk about that. But I wanted to mention his auto follow-up. We talked about it with Myrrh, but it can be huge, and it's the reason he wins against Yuri. It's really good, and it's also what separates him from Ascendant Idunn. Now, these benchmarks are tough to survive, and S tier Far Saviors were able to win against 2 of them. You'll definitely see a shift in the meta here, so let's see who made it. I'm still having a hard time adjusting to the fact that dragons are good again. The fact is, Halloween Robin has a Spendthrift effect, a great stat line with monstrous attack, and healing. Hardy Fighter just fits so well into his kit. Also, adaptive damage is extremely underrated. I don't have footage of the Farsave variety of this unit, but I have some folks who swear by him. If you've got the fodder, this is a very fun unit. His healing is something that won't show up in these kind of sims, but it really gives him sustainability in every mode. It means he's much more likely to be able to take that second round of combat. Duma? I'm just as surprised as you, trust me. I didn't even consider this unit until John in our server started building his, which is the footage you're seeing. The fact is, his Refine is just amazing. He's got Spendthrift effect, damage reduction, true damage, and a conditional wary effect. Duma is a monster. With a little tinkering, he can survive all 3 of these units. As is, Yuri is his biggest problem though. Still, Duma is good. Did I mention he's an uber catapult in Aether Raids now? What has happened? We've gotten to the shiny new toy. Let's not mince words. Fallen Rhea is incredible. I don't have a max invested one because who besides KCB has those kinds of resources? KCB, if you're listening, I want to see a highlight video so badly so that I can live vicariously through you. Please. But Fallen Rhea is the pinnacle of the dragon meta that we are currently in. Remember when it was Winter Sothis and Halloween Myrrh? This is the new shape of things. I should mention that her res-based true damage can give her one heck of a player phase. Fallen Rhea is amazing. Look at her. But let's talk about the list as a whole. More than half of this list is dragon units. They are back, but before we draw some conclusions, these videos are an insane amount of work, and I appreciate it so much if you could hit the like button and share this video. Thank you guys for all your support. You are amazing. Now, all of these units are excellent and have their good and bad points. You guys just saw me dominate summoner duels with Arden of all units. But these metrics didn't take into account some of the other things that I've mentioned as we've gone through here, and they can make a big difference in your selection. But we need to talk about the fact that the entire top tier is made of colorless dragons. This is a bit scary to me. It normally means that IS is about to release some serious counters. I still think these units will be very good, but just be on the lookout. If you wanted to wait a couple months to invest in a unit like Rhea, I wouldn't blame you. Speaking of investment though, who should you invest in? It's the big question, right? There are a couple things going on right now. IS is finally trying to balance out the armor meta. It means that we're getting armors that are better than Brave Hector and the nukes to counter them. It puts us in a precarious place, but these units are just so valuable that it can be very hard to have patience. The first thing I have to address is, if you're starting from scratch, Fallen Rhea is the clear winner. You need to do some kit overhaul, but that's true of most units on this list. She's just so good, and she probably will be for a while. Look at Fallen Edelgard. Despite all the hate, she's still a very good tank, and that's probably Fallen Rhea's floor. Now, who's the budget option? it's still Brave Hector. With the weekly focus rates, you can plus 10 him for around 3 months worth of orbs. Realistically, he doesn't even need to be at plus 10. He's cheap, he's good. Is he the best? No, but with dragons dominating the meta, we're about to see more water sweep and less wind sweep. Is it possible that he gains value? Why didn't I invest in this unit? The off-meta option is clearly Duma. Have I mentioned my surprise? The fact that he also has a lot of value in Aetherites helps a ton. He's just so unexpected, and in max invested Duma survives every single one of these threats. How is Duma good? My reality has been shaken. Now, summoners, this is the ugliest thing that I have ever made, but it's tough to get all this data into one window, and I wanted to make sure you saw it. I won't talk about this too much, but I will include the text that you can input into Arctic Silver Fox's simulation along with the link. That'll let you play around with this and customize it to your heart's desire. The only thing that isn't shown is the +6 to attack that I gave to each of the enemies. With that, happy summoning, take care, and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.